Hey, today we're going to talk about how you can color within the lines or relative to a painted surface in Clip Studio Paint. So first let's talk about line art. And in this example here, we've got a layer we're actually going to paint underneath the line art. That's typically what you want to do. And notice here that I actually have two different layers where line art is. So they're not just on one layer. And I've got a little red color selected here, and the easiest way is just to use the paint bucket. Now, right now I've got fairly clean line art, but if you select the paint bucket, and in this case I've selected the one that says all layers, and there's lots of different options that you can select, and if you need to see even more options, you click on the wrench and it'll bring up the details. But we've got most of those visible here. Now, the thing you want to notice is I have selected multiple referring layers here. So what that means is as I try to do the fill on layer 5, it will reference all other layers. So also we see follow adjacent pixels, and as I do the fill, it will fill in using all of the other layers as reference. Now, another thing we want to look at is this button. It's the anti-alias button. Now, it was clicked originally, but let me turn it off and watch what will happen if I do a fill here. Also, there's another thing called area scaling, so let me unselect that as well, and the color margin is turned way down. So if I click in there now, notice that we've got this white border. Ooh, that looks ugly. Well, what's happening is the line art is anti-aliased, and so it just goes until it finds even something close, a very gray color. If we look at this, this is not pure white, and so it stops there. So you can fix that by either increasing the color margin, doing area scaling, or anti-aliasing. So let's first look at anti-aliasing. I'll turn it back on, and notice it does a better job, but it still isn't quite right. Well, what you want to do if we're doing line art is we want to do area scaling. So we actually want it to fill plus a little bit more. So we can actually turn off anti-aliasing and turn on area scaling. Here it's set to 5. And now as I click, notice that it actually is filling in a little bit more than just a line. And let me show one other thing that you can do is with Clip Studio Paint, what's nice is I can click in this one area and just drag, and it will fill all of these panels. So that's really nice. Now if I turn off the artwork above, notice that the area scaling has filled in beyond just the very edge. So one nice way to color with flat colors is using the paint bucket and using these special abilities. But another thing you can do is you can actually paint with a pen. So to do that, what I want to do is I am going to create reference layers. So this thing that looks like a lighthouse is going to be a reference layer. So I click on the two layers that I want to be a reference layer, and I click on that little lighthouse. I then select the layer that I want to paint in, and I select my brush. Now, your brush may not show this checkbox here, do not exceed the line of the reference layer. If that's not there, then again press the wrench and you will see it can come up, but it will be under the anti-overflow. And so there you can see do not exceed the line of the reference layer, and that little eyeball means that it will show up in my tool panel over here. Now notice, just like the paint bucket, it's got the color margin and the area scaling as well. So what will happen in this situation is, as I paint, as long as the center of my circle doesn't go over the line, it will stay constrained. So see, I haven't gone past the center. Now if I move my line past the center, it'll move over. But as long as I keep it within this region, so I've got kind of like a little buffer, if you will, and I can paint in that area. So, of course, if I I'm going to try to fill in the whole circle, that's just how I do that. And Again, you want to, if you want, you may need to change the color margin or area scaling. But that's another way that you can fill or paint within line art. Now suppose instead I don't have line art, but I've got a base color and I want to do some shading on that. Well, the most typical way that we can do that is select the Magic Wand selection tool. And again, I look at all the different options that I have, and again, you can go to the wrench if you need more options. But here I've got multiple referring selected, and I also have the all layers selected. You can do area scaling and color margin and things like that as well, but notice I've got follow adjacent pixels. So I'm going to be on layer 4, but I want to reference layer 1, so I'm just going to click in here, and because it has multiple referring and it's referring to all layers, it will now select that area. So I selected inside here, so now I can paint inside of that pinkish colored area. So I'll just get my paintbrush and I will paint within that area. And right now, if you don't know this brush, this is the Paint and Apply brush, which is really nice because you can lay down paint, a solid color, and then press lightly and it will blend out that color. Now in some cases this method may not work because it may blend with the different colors outside of this clipping region or this selection area. Or perhaps you may just want a slightly different approach. And to do that, there is this clip at layer below, which is a very helpful kind of thing. Just by clicking on that, now you can kind of see there's this line kind of here. And I don't have a selection on, it just says clip at layer below. And now I can again do my shading and it will stay constrained within the color below. Now just to show you, not only can you click on that little icon, if I right click on the layer icon, the layer image here, I see that same clip at layer below, and in fact I see all of these different options are showing up here. Lock transparent pixel, lock to layer. Now notice, depending upon where I click, I have a different menu showing up. If I click right here, I get a great big menu. If I click on the eyeball, or on the eyeball here, I get the hide all other layers. It's about dealing with layers, so you have to be very careful if you're going to right click of where you're clicking. So now what if you actually want to paint on the same layer? This is clip at layer below, but if I wanted to paint on the same layer, what would I do? Well, I could use the Magic Wand selection if I want, but there's also another option. Right here is Lock Transparent Pixels. And in this particular case, this ball is the only thing on that layer, so the other pixels are transparent, so we cannot paint on those layers. So since I've locked the transparent pixels, and you can see that little lock there, it's selected, I can now paint on that layer, and it will not go beyond the bounds of the color. So between all those options, you've got quite a number of ways that you can color quickly within the bounds of either line art or some other painting layer. Hope that's helpful.